A question of reality. Have you ever wondered, who am I really? This is not just an abstract philosophical question, but the most important question in the journey of enlightenment. It leads us down the path of truth, beyond all illusions, to see our true nature. Sri Ramana Maharshi once said, "When the question, 'Who am I?' is repeatedly questioned, the illusory me disappears, and what remains is pure cognition, the true I." Today, we enter the 26th chapter of the Ribhu Gita, a work that is considered to be the core of Advaita Vedanta wisdom. In this way, we will have a better understanding of Sahaja Samadhi, the natural state of enlightenment, where wisdom returns to itself, and we realize our timeless, non-spatial nature. Ribhu Gita, the treasure of immortal wisdom. What is Ribhu Gita? The Ribhu Gita is one of the precious texts of the Advaita Vedanta tradition, an ancient text taught by the great sage Shiva himself to his disciple Ribhu. Regarded as the jewel of enlightened knowledge, it presents the core of the non-dual truth, Advaita, that there is only one reality, Brahman, and that all we see is an illusion of the mind. Sri Ramana Maharshi often referred to the Ribhu Gita and encouraged his disciples to read, reflect, and practice what was taught in it. His Holiness considers this to be one of the quintessential texts that help the practitioner reach the state of Sahaja Samadhi, natural enlightenment, overcoming all efforts and techniques. Sahaja Samadhi, enlightenment without effort. What is Samadhi? In the Yoga and Vedanta traditions, Samadhi is a state of union with absolute reality. It has many levels, but Sahaja Samadhi is the highest state where enlightenment becomes natural. There is no longer a distinction between meditation and daily life. Sri Ramana Maharshi has been living in a state of Sahaja Samadhi continuously since the age of 16, when he attained the experience of self-actualization of the Atman, the true self. He did not need to try to concentrate or keep his mind still, for he had become pure cognition himself. There is no need to close your eyes to meditate. When the mind has merged with its true nature, this world is no longer an obstacle. Sri Ramana Maharshi. How to reach Sahaja Samadhi. Inquiry of the ego, who am I? This question helps to cut out all illusions about a separate me. Let go of all concepts, no longer clinging to anything, including spirituality or enlightenment. Realizing one's true nature, it is absolute stillness, unwavering, non-extinguishing. The story of the meditator and the lesson from the Ribhu Gita. A man approached Sri Ramana Maharshi and asked, "Sir, I have read many scriptures, practiced meditation, but why am I still not enlightened?" He smiled and said, "I have read the scriptures, but do I live with that truth? If you still think you're not enlightened, you're still clinging to an illusory me." Then His Holiness quoted the Ribhu Gita. "Nothing but me. Everything we see, hear, feel is me. If there is anything other than me, it is only an illusion." The practitioner suddenly understands everything he is looking for is always here, within himself. What does chapter 26 of the Ribhu Gita say? Ribhu Gita, chapter 26, is an important chapter, clearly presenting the wisdom that directly leads to enlightenment. The core content of this chapter can be summarized into three main principles. There is nothing but Brahman, the only reality. All perceptions of the world are Maya. Living with this wisdom is the state of Sahaja Samadhi, natural enlightenment. Chapter 26 also emphasizes that there is no need to achieve anything because reality has always been Brahman. I have always been the immortal I. Sri Ramana Maharshi has quoted many times from this chapter to explain to his disciples self-inquiry and ego renunciation. The essence of ignorance is to believe that there is a separate me. But when we see our true nature, we realize that there is nothing but me. There is no one to achieve, nothing to achieve, only pure cognition. Is this world real? Explanation from the Ribhu Gita. One of the most powerful aspects of chapter 26 is the denial of the reality of the world. This document affirms that the world we see is just a dream, like an illusion in the desert. When the mind is still, there is no longer a distinction between me and the world out there, then only pure Brahman remains. But if the world isn't real, why do we still feel it? Sri Ramana Maharshi explains that the feeling of the world is created by the mind. When the mind is drawn into thought, the world appears. When the mind is still, the world disappears. Imagine you're dreaming. In the dream, you may feel that everything is very real. You are walking on the street, talking to people, having joys and sorrows. But when you wake up, you realize it's all just an illusion. Similarly, our usual state of wakefulness is also a dream, but a bigger dream. When we become enlightened, we wake up from this dream and realize that there is only one reality, me itself. Living in the state of Sahaja Samadhi, how to practice? Sahaja Samadhi is not a state that can only be found when we meditate in a cave, but an enlightenment in the middle of life. Sri Ramana Maharshi emphasized that there is nothing to be achieved, for I have always been Brahman. Just give up the illusion that I am not enlightened. So how to live in this state? 1. Realizing that we are not the body and mind. Observe, when you are asleep, there is no world, no sense of the body. But you still exist. This means that your true nature does not depend on your body or thoughts. 2. Letting go of the concept of me. The me is the source of all suffering. When we believe that I am this individual, I am suffering, I am trying to become enlightened, we are still stuck. When the question, who am I, is dug deeper, we realize that no one is suffering, only pure awareness. 3. Practice seeing Brahman in everything. The world is not seen as individual objects, but as a single entity. When you look at someone, instead of seeing them as someone else, realize that it is also you. Brahman is reflecting in that image. Story when Sri Ramana Maharshi points out reality. Once, a disciple asked him, "How do I see Brahman?" Sri Ramana Maharshi was silent for a moment, then pointed to the person who asked and said, "Tell me where I am?" The disciple replied, "You're sitting in front of me." He smiled and asked, "How do you know that?" "For I see him." "So, who is seeing?" The disciple was silent. Sri Ramana Maharshi says, "That seeing has no shape, no color, no limit. It is pure cognition, it is I, it is you. When you realize this, there is nothing but Brahman. live with non-dual wisdom and liberation now. 1. Why are we still in bondage? We have understood that according to the Ribhu Gita, this world is Maya, a dream, and our true nature is Brahman, pure cognition. But why is it that even knowing this, we still can't live in Sahaja Samadhi, the state of natural enlightenment? The simple answer: we are still clinging to the self and the phenomenal world. Sri Ramana Maharshi teaches that the ego is the root of all illusions. When the ego disappears, all illusions about the world, time, and cause and effect also disappear. But what is the ego? The ego is not an entity, but a false notion of separation. It is the feeling of I am a separate individual, having a body, having thoughts, having desires and fears. Ribhu Gita chapter 26 affirms, there is no difference between me and others, between me and the world. It's all just one. But how to see this? Direct practice, observe and undo the ego. Step 1. Look at yourself. What am I? Ask yourself, before I had an idea, what am I? When we don't have thoughts, we still exist. Without this body, we are still ourselves. Then what am I? The true me cannot be a body, cannot be a thought, cannot be an emotion. The only me is pure cognition, Brahman. If you can experience this firsthand, you will immediately see that there is nothing more to achieve. You're already that. Step 2. Observe the world, what's real. Observe whatever is in front of you, a table, a person, a wind. Wonder. If we don't recognize it, does it exist? Does it exist on its own, or is it just an image in our consciousness? Ribhu Gita says, the so-called world is not real. It's just an idea that arises in the mind. Sri Ramana Maharshi also said, when the mind stops working, the world also disappears. This is not to say that the physical world does not exist, but that it is the way we see it that matters. The world is not a collection of discrete objects. The world is only a manifestation of awareness of Brahman. You can verify this now. Close your eyes. All gone. Open your eyes. The world appeared. So is it real or virtual? Enlightenment is not an experience, it is realization. Many people think that enlightenment is a special state. There is light, there is strong energy, there is a feeling of ecstasy. But no! Enlightenment is not a momentary experience. Sri Ramana Maharshi says, you don't have to achieve enlightenment. You just have to realize that you've never been unenlightened. When you really see nothing but Brahman, you will understand that enlightenment is simply realizing what is always right. Nothing needs to change. No one needs enlightenment. Nothing needs to be achieved. This is Sahaja Samadhi, natural, vivid enlightenment in every moment. Story: when a disciple tries to attain enlightenment. A disciple went to Sri Ramana Maharshi and said, Sir, I have meditated a lot, but I have not yet attained liberation. Please help me. Sri Ramana looked at him and asked, who is the one who has not yet attained liberation? The disciple was silent. He continued, "Before the thought of I'm not enlightened appears, what are you?" He closed his eyes and looked inside. After a long while, he opened his eyes, smiled, and said, "Sir, there is no one who is not enlightened. The path has no path. Enlightenment does not need to be achieved." "I understand, but why am I still not enlightened?" "Have you ever wondered?" "I've read, I've understood, I've practiced, but why do I still feel disconnected from enlightenment?" Sri Ramana Maharshi said that this is a wrong question because you can't attain enlightenment, you can only realize that you have never been unenlightened. Do you see the difference? If you think that enlightenment is a state to attain, you will forever pursue it. But if you understand that enlightenment is just realizing your true nature, you will no longer have to search. So what's stopping you from realizing this obvious truth? The biggest obstacle, clinging to the me. Ribhu Gita taught, as long as there is the concept of I am this person, I am this body, it is far from the truth. We are used to identifying ourselves with our bodies, our thoughts, our memories, our personal identities. Example: when someone compliments you, you are happy. When someone criticizes, you are sad. When you succeed, you feel proud. When you fail, you feel hurt. But who is happy, sad, hurt? Sri Ramana Maharshi says, ask yourself, who experienced this? If you really look inside, you'll find that there is no separate me that is experiencing it. Only pure awareness, Brahman, exists. The story of a wave in the ocean. A small wave in the ocean anxiously asked a larger wave, I'm afraid I'm going to disappear. When I shatter to the shore, I will no longer exist. The big wave laughed and said, You're not a wave. You are the ocean. But how do I know for sure? The little wave asked tremblingly. The big wave replied, Look closely. Have you ever left the ocean? Are you really different from him? At that moment, the small wave realized it had never been an individual. It's always the ocean. Final teaching, enlightenment is not knowledge, it is living with the truth. Sri Ramana Maharshi says, True wisdom is not knowledge by thought, but real life with the awareness of I am Brahman in every moment. This means, don't just read about enlightenment, but live like an enlightened person. Don't just believe in Brahman, but see that you are Brahman right now. Can you do it right now? Epilogue, return to yourself. You have never been unenlightened. You have never left Brahman. Just realize this right here, right now. Sri Ramana Maharshi says, Stop. Look no further. Go inside and see that you've always been that. Can you stop, close your eyes, and realize this now? Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.